Hi, my name is Tyler, and I will be giving you an introduction to the CEA screening tool today. This should orient you to how the tool functions and give you a sense of how you might find it useful for your own research needs. So when you go to the website, cea-screening-tool-web.onrender.com, you'll come to our landing page here and get a nice overview of the tool and what it has to offer. You can close out of this info box with the Explore the Tool button. And the first thing I'll demonstrate today is just some data visualization with these layers in the data layers panel on the left here. So clicking on these triangles will expand and collapse the different categories of data layers that we have available. You can also show all of them on the map or hide all of them on the map with these two buttons. So for now, I'll hide them all and you'll just see a blank map here, and I'll show you what it looks like to add a few data layers that you might want to visualize. So for example, clicking on the climate zones data layer will bring up these climate zones across the country. And this legend in the bottom right corner indicates that as you move from blue shades to green shades and then red shades, you're moving from cold to temperate to hotter climate zones. And actually clicking on a particular climate zone, you'll get a little location profile pop up that shows a few things. First of all, the location that you clicked on in terms of its latitude and longitude coordinates, the county in which that location falls, the state, the zip code, and then these identifiers for the building climate zone based on the Building America climate zoning categories, as well as the IECC climate zone number code and the moisture regime. In this case, there's no moisture regime. If we clicked on another climate zone over here in Nebraska, the moisture regime would appear to be A. So you could go to the IECC climate zone classifications resource online to find out more about what these codes refer to. But essentially the code number for the zone and the regime letter for the A translate to a description in terms of its cold versus warm versus hot qualitative climate zone. So that is essentially how the climate zones map out. You can also visualize layers such as precipitation. So these are showing precipitation on a 5-year mean basis for individual counties. So each of the polygons on the map represents a county, and again, this is a 5-year mean of annual precipitation on a county basis. So I will not go through all of the data layers here, but I will just briefly show you what some of the other categories contain. So land use and utilities shows things like land zoning and land parcels for specific communities where we have that data available. I will note that that is only a small subset of communities in the country. And going into some more of the social economic parameters here, we have demographic data such as population density, personal income, and some derived data sets such as CEA workers, which represent labor workers in the agricultural sector, which we have estimated to represent the number of CEA workers on in a given area. Food access, opportunity zones, these are good economic indicators for access to quality food and economic opportunity. And then some of these co-location opportunities layers are actual point source estimates for things like existing CEA facilities and composting facilities, and other infrastructure and location-based data that is tied to specific points which may be relevant to siting a CEA facility. And then we also map out existing retailers and wholesalers for different types of food. So you can click through those layers as well. And lastly, biogas facilities show anaerobic digesters and landfills. And again, clicking on any of these layers will bring up a little profile box that gives you more detailed information that we have available for those locations. So we highly recommend you go through these data layers and explore the ones that seem interesting to you. Maybe turn off the ones that don't. And the one last thing I'll show about these data layers is in the legend over here, or I should say the data layers panel, you can change the opacity. So say you wanted to overlay several layers and visualize how they interact with each other in space. You could turn multiple layers on and adjust the opacity of those layers to better visualize specifically what you're trying to overlap. So that's what these plus and minus buttons next to each layer name represent. So for now, I'll hide all the layers. I will maybe bring up the temperature base layer and go into the next feature here, which is sighting mode. So you can collapse these panels to give yourself a better view of the map at any point in time, and then expand them again if you want to edit things. So I'm just going to collapse this data layers panel, go into sighting mode here, which by default is turned off, but if we toggle this switch on, it will open up a new panel here, which asks us to declare the facility specifications for some hypothetical CEA facility that we're trying to site. So in order to use this feature, we need to specify exactly what kind of facility we are considering. So in this example, I will use the default of tomatoes. To think about building a facility for growing tomatoes, we will call our facility a greenhouse, and we'll keep it small, again going with all the defaults here, and go with a low-tech greenhouse. And in order to get the baseline operational metrics for our facility, we need to select where it's going to go. So for this example, I'll just choose somewhere in the Midwest out here in Illinois. And if I click on the map, it will place a pin, which it's calling our proposed site. And in this proposed site pop-up, you'll see a lot of profile data for that location, pulling from the data layers, because all these data layers have quantitative data attached to them. It's pulling that into our site selection and giving you some summary statistics for that location. The radius around the point is non-meaningful in any kind of way. It just gives you kind of an area estimate of the surrounding, region for your proposed site. But we're trying to pull in the data for these different layers at the granularity that we can. So whether that's down to the lat-long coordinates or at the county level for things like unemployment rate and per capita income, we just try to give you the highest resolution data we can for each type of data point. So if we then go to our Get Baseline Operational Metrics button, we can get an idea of the energy use, water use, and CO2 emissions for this site at that specific location. And again, we are pulling in localized data points where we can for things like the cost of electricity, the water rates, the cost of water, and the CO2 emissions are based upon the type of facility, the size of that facility, and the crop type that we're growing there. So from here, we can go ahead and download our results, which is one way to save them for offline analysis, and that will give you a download of CSV, which gives you these same statistics in CSV format. Or we can jump over here to the Decarbonization Strategies button, which will open up yet another panel for 10 different pathways, which could be could be implemented to decarbonize, or I should say, reduce the impacts of energy use, water use, and or CO2 emissions of our facility. So each pathway has a title for what kind of technology would be implemented for that pathway. And then we give you a range, an updated range of the metrics for energy, water, and CO2 that would result from implementing that technology. The reason we give you a range is because we can't precisely determine how much of a reduction in energy, water, or CO2 these technologies would give you, because there is some uncertainty involved. So where possible, we give you as close to a fixed number as we can. But in this case, since the water use was 480,000, and none of these pathways, at least for the first few, didn't have an impact on water use, that's why we give you the baseline water use number without any adjustments. But where we show ranges, we give you the adjusted values for those specific metrics. Again, you can download this data with the download results button at the bottom here, and that will give you another CSV for these pathway metrics. So that walks you through an analysis for one particular site. You can do this as many times as you want and save the results of your analyses as CSVs, and then compare sites offline using that CSV data. But that sums up exactly how to walk through the tool and use its core functions. So we highly encourage you to play around with it and see how it can be used for addressing your use cases and needs, whether that's just data exploration or actually doing more pinpoint siting analysis using this siting mode. Thanks for watching.